Hello and welcome back to the Pinili podcast. If you're watching here on YouTube, you will notice I'm in a little bit of a different setting. I'm currently dog sitting for my sister and her partner. They're doing a Euro summer. So I'm telling you this also because if you hear background noise, and all my listeners, if you're hearing background noise, I have two dogs near me that might be walking in and out, and I just didn't have the heart to shut them out of this room. But thank you for coming back to the podcast, watching/listening to this. I have been receiving so much just beautiful feedback on the last couple of podcast episodes, and you guys are really loving the last episode where I break down the process of working through fear. If you have not listened to that or watched that, definitely go and do it. It's one of my favorite episodes to date. I could definitely do a part 2 or a part 3. But in today's episode, I'm going to be speaking about and sharing with you what happens when it feels like life is chaotic. This year for me has been huge. There's been a lot that has been happening business-wise and personal-wise. I actually want to do kind of more of a personal podcast episode. Maybe in the next couple of months, there's a lot that's been happening for me personally. Good things, but different things. And instead of just like telling you and doing a little bit of a 1-minute dump right now, there's a few things that are happening that I would love to just do a complete episode on. So definitely stay tuned for that. But today, I really just want to dive in deep into, when business, when your career gets a little bit chaotic, when it starts to feel like, this is heavy. And when it started to feel like that for me, like I truly don't believe in the word balance. I feel that you need to be able to use discernment and understand what season you are in, life, business, career, all of it. And when you are able to actually get honest with yourself and to trust yourself and some of the things that I'm going to go through today, like I said in the last episode, if you see me looking down here on YouTube, I have got my notes because I don't want to miss anything. But I wanted to start by saying that get rid of the notion that you have to balance things in your life, because you cannot possibly split your time and energy evenly between everything that is happening. And this is why it's really important to be able to practice discernment and trust yourself and lead yourself into understanding. And this is kind of like the first thing that I want you to do as you're listening to this, is understand what season of life are you in. Currently for me, I am in this building, scaling phase of my business. And in fact, that's kind of flowing on into parts of my personal life as well, but it's about embracing that. And it can feel a little bit chaotic. It can feel a little bit all over the place. But when those times happen, and I'm going to be specifically talking about when you're experiencing what feels like chaos, it's about leaning in. And it's a true sign, like I truly believe this, a true sign that you're actually expanding. And something that I've put here is normalizing the expansion and normalizing when it can feel like a little bit of whiplash, when it can feel like, oh my God, okay, things aren't really going smoothly, but things are happening. And to really anchor yourself into the truth, which is the more you grow, the more intense it does feel. I think there was a period of time a few years ago, and I don't know how long I had adopted this, but I'm definitely out of this mindset now, where I picked up somewhere along the way that growth and change should be this like beautiful thing that just feels so simple and easy, and you're changing, and it's like this, I don't know, there's beautiful like rainbows and fairies, and it's really not like that. It truly isn't. Remember, change is dysregulation. It is something that is different. We are wired to stay the same. We are wired to experience things that are familiar to our subconscious identity, that are familiar to our nervous system. And so it's really a fantasy to think, when I'm changing and when life feels chaotic, but I'm expanding, that it should feel like peaceful. Yes, of course, we want to get to that state, but I just want to remind you that it is going to feel overwhelming. But you need to expand. You need to lean into it and know it is a true sign of expansion and not a sign for you to stop. And this ties in perfectly with last episode. I was going to say last week's, but it was a couple of weeks ago it was released. The last episode of really understanding your fear and really understanding what is keeping you where you are and anchoring into your reality right now, and what you are actually resisting when it comes to change. And so the first thing that I want to speak about is look at the version of you that cannot handle the chaos. We need to identify the patterns that are keeping you getting the same result. Now, I know that the word chaos, and I probably should have started with this, the word chaos can almost feel like it has this negative connotation, right? It can almost feel like a perceived negative thing when you hear the word chaos, but I want you to associate it differently when instead it's kind of just like, yes, things are all over the place. Yes, things are happening, but it's also the pathway into change, into experiencing life differently, into experiencing your relationships, your money, your business, career, your health and wellness differently. And chaos doesn't need to feel like everything's burning to the ground. But really, it's just, for me and how I've started to position the word, it's just another way to look at change. You're not inconsistent. You're not lazy. I know that if you're listening or watching this, you are come here because you are ambitious. I know that you have levels of success that you want to reach, but every time things start to move, the puzzle pieces start to come into place into that version of success that you are after, you lean out. And I used to be there. I was there for years, and this is what kept me in the same cycles before my business. And when I started my business, I've definitely experienced this where I'm like, okay, puzzle pieces are moving. It's too chaotic. I'm just going to slow down right now. And it's actually just about anchoring into what you are doing. And that is the first thing, is identifying the patterns, identifying how you're actually feeling. It's really, really easy just to listen to me and be like, okay, when it starts to feel chaotic, I'm just going to do better with pushing through. It's not about pushing through. I want to highlight that. It's not about just push through, right? And again, discernment. I use that word. I'm going to probably be using that word a lot in today's episode of what is actually fucking chaotic. And it's like, all right, I need to take a step back versus, and this is where high achievers and ambitious women get stuck, is they don't know the difference between the actual life is chaotic and I need to slow down and I need to just like step back versus, oh, I'm actually experiencing the things that I want to experience. I'm heading into this new season of life. Going back to the season talk, life comes in seasons. And it is something, the more that you resist, the harder it is going to feel. And business for me is this is applicable all over, but I just want to share with you because I'm experiencing now, since probably mid-May, I would say, I have definitely been in this building, scaling, at times feels chaotic, at times feels overwhelming season in business. But before that, I was really taking a step back to, number one, there was fear there, and there was the uncertainty because we don't like not knowing what is going to happen. That's just a human being thing. But I can recognize now, especially doing a lot of this work heavily this year, that I was just in this slow season where I needed to zoom out. And I needed to anchor in what is happening, what season of my life, and what am I doing? But also why we identify the patterns and what's actually happening is so we can be honest with ourselves. Are we calling it a slow season, or are we actually not doing the things because we are scared? Are we actually not doing the things we need to and showing up and leading ourselves through life because we're scared of what's going to happen? These are the conversations you need to have with yourself. And so, something that I've put here in my notes is, how often are you freezing when it feels like it's getting too hard? And then how often are you then reverting back to the same cycles that you are repeating that are getting the exact same results? And I had to have a very honest conversation with myself at the start of this year, like coming into this year, of what is looking the exact same. Again, applicable to life and business, but what is looking the same? What results am I getting that are the same? And where do I get to the edge? By the way, if you have not signed up for my free 5-day training series, Paths to the Next Edge. Make sure you sign up. The link should be in the description box below, and go and consume that, because it's one of the best, if not the best, training series I have ever created. But it's really about how do you get from your current level to your next edge. So that's going to be a perfect complement to this podcast episode. But it's really like, when do you actually bow out? When you're on that edge, when you're right there and you know you need to operate differently, you need to anchor in differently, you need to lock in differently, but then you lean out. And then you go back to the start and you lose the momentum, and then you start all over again and you get frustrated with yourself. This is what I want to share with you today, is at that moment, it's going to feel chaotic. It's going to feel overwhelming. It's going to feel like you can't do it, but you can, but you have to operate differently. You have to do things differently to get a different result. And I know that seems like the most obvious thing ever, but we forget it. We forget it when we're right on the edge of change, when we're right on the edge of a breakthrough, of experiencing life differently. Remember, you get to experience whatever you want in this lifetime. You truly do. You get to create whatever results that you want, but it is up to you. You can, of course, have external factors helping you and supporting you, but it is up to you. If you are experiencing life and business or your career the same over and over and over again, or maybe you're just experiencing like small, very small increments, then stop normalizing that. Normalize that you can have the results you want in a week's time, in a month's time, in a year's time. But which one do you want? And it is going to require you to, number one, identify what is actually happening. What do the patterns look like? What do the cycles look like? How do you react to life? How are you responding to life? How are you responding to everything that you are doing? How are you responding to your current results? And where really are you settling? There's been many moments over the past, I'm going to say 8 years, close to a decade, maybe even a little bit over. No, I would say decade. So I'm 32 now. I would say, 22. Actually, I had a memory come up on my Facebook memories yesterday, and it was exactly 10 years ago. So I was 22 years old, and I was out walking one of the dogs, and it was a photo memory. And I just took myself back to that moment, where I was at, how I was operating, what I was doing. Obviously, I was in a very, very different season of my life. I was 22 years old. And, just living life to a different degree to what I'm doing right now. But it made me also realize the amount of times that I had held myself back, the amount of times that I had more so justified. Where are you justifying in your life doing the same thing and not leaning into the things, the behaviors, the actions that are going to actually create different results? And I put here, structure is how you love yourself when everything feels uncertain. When chaos hits in your calendar with your cash flow, your content, your relationships, your health, structure is going to be your anchor. It doesn't matter if you identify with type A, myself, or you identify with type B. It doesn't matter. It's not about restriction. It's about having enough respect for yourself to go, hey, we're not here about shaming ourselves or judging ourselves, because when we shame ourselves and when we judge ourselves, yes, there's of course different degrees, but it doesn't help us. It's not productive. So we can sit there in shame cycles. We can sit there in the guilt. We can sit there justifying what we're doing and why we need to do it. And trust me, going back to what I said of thinking back to when I was 22 and the lead up now to being 32, there have been so many times. And this comes with, emotional maturity. It comes with hitting a different decade in my life. It comes with, maturing. But there have been so many times where I just justified my behavior and my choices and the reasons why I didn't do something or why I couldn't change. I see this in almost every single woman that comes and works with me. And I've worked with hundreds now over the past 6 years. But you get so used to justifying why you should live in the chaos and not embrace it and learn from it. And they're two very different things. You can experience chaos and you can just decide to live in it and repeat these cycles of like you're right there, you're nearly at the next edge, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm just going to make life be messy, or I'm going to tell myself this is just how I am. I used to do a lot of that, right? This is just how I am. Yes, we have personalities and we have traits and we have the ways that we are wired, of course. That's important to acknowledge. But if you are wanting a different result, if you are wanting to be richer, if you are wanting to attract relationships that are your vibe, if you are wanting to experience different in your business or your career, then it's time to understand, and am I just living in the chaos because it's, and I'm just like justifying all of this, or am I actually leaning in and learning from it? Justification versus learning, two very different energies that are going to get you two very different results. Now, I've got a few tangible strategies that I've written down here for both business and life. And these are things, like I said, structure isn't about restriction. Structure is about having respect for yourself. It's about adopting self-leadership. It's about being able to use yourself, your behaviors, what is actually happening as a mirror. When I started to use my own self as a mirror, right, it's really easy because I feel like, this has been in social media the past few years, more than the past few years, but, use your relationships as mirrors. That's great, right? And they're the kind of guiding anchors, but the best mirror that you can actually use is yourself, and being radically honest. And you may listen to me and you may think, okay, this is obvious, or maybe this is a new insight for you. But if it's obvious for you, it's like, how often do you actually do it? You should be doing it every day. Have a quick self-reflection. Self-reflection is big for me. At the end of every day or throughout my day, you don't need to sit there for an hour in your journal and write out all the things that happen. If that helps you, absolutely do it. But a quick self-reflection can be like 2 minutes. You just sit there. Like if you're halfway through your work day, 2 minutes. What's happening? How am I responding? How am I feeling? How am I getting to know myself? When you get to know yourself, you get to trust yourself. But let's go through some tangible things that I want you to create or start to adopt structure around that can really help you move through life and business when it does feel uncertain, when you feel like you are at that next edge. And if you look back on the past 6 months of this year specifically, and things haven't really changed, or you're only experiencing like these micro shifts, and you are meant for so much more. This is the thing. I know who I'm talking to because I'm talking to myself. It's like, you are meant for so much more. You can feel it in your bones. You can feel it at a cellular level that you are here to experience much more. And I was doing something yesterday and I was just thinking, I don't have any regrets. I think everything happens as it is meant to happen. Yes, are there things that I'm like, would I tell my younger self, yeah, it would be great. But again, everything that I've experienced and the way I've been has gotten me to this point, has taught me some form of lesson. But with a regret, I would hate, this is the one thing, I would hate to get to 90 years old or whatever it is, 100 years old, and I look back on my life and I think, why didn't I just put more of myself into my life? Why didn't I just put more in? Why didn't I give myself the benefit of the doubt? Why didn't I just try? If you're conforming to who you once were, if you're conforming to what your friends and your family are saying you should be, that is probably going to be the biggest regret of your life, not taking a risk. Even if the risk fails, failure equals feedback. That's something that I rewired in my brain a long, long time ago. My camera overheated. So going back from what I was just saying, failure equals feedback is something I rewired a long, long time ago. And it has really helped in not only life, but entrepreneurship, knowing that that failure is going to give you the biggest lessons. But I digress. Let's go through these tangible strategies. So in business, I want you to reground into, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 things for life and business that when things feel uncertain, when you feel like it's chaotic, instead of leaning out and just labeling yourself as chaotic or this is just how you are, this is how we actually learn from it. And this is how we actually love ourselves and move forward and create the results that we know that we are meant for. Business. Reground into your content plan, even if it's messy inspired action. I've been saying that for years, 1% of messy inspired action. Reground into it. Look at your content in your business. Content is, and I could do a whole podcast episode on this, so definitely let me know if you want that. And I could even make that a series. So comment below, and if you are listening, send me a DM if that is something that you would love on the podcast. Whole series about content creation, and just the important role that it plays in business. But what I will say now is content is absolutely king. It is something that you need to continuously reflect on. I reflect on my content every single week, and it's not getting held up in, okay, did this get enough shares? Did this get enough likes, views? No. It's about gathering data and analytics, and remember, this is a section for business, and being able to understand what you are articulating. It is going to be the thing that not only gets your voice and your expertise out, but it is what is going to create money in your business. Stop following trends for the sake of it. Stop watering down your message for the sake of it because you're afraid of what people are going to say or think. I want you to reground in what you are actually creating instead of having this anxious feeling or being like, I just need to get something up. Like, let me scroll through for inspiration. No, reground. What do you actually want to create? Where do you really thrive when it comes to content? Right now, I'm creating long form podcasts, but maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you really thrive in doing green screen teachings. But you need to find that. As a business owner, it is one of the most important things. You know, with my methodology, Woman Mastery methodology, there are 4 areas. There is visibility, influence, sales, and identity. They're all very important and they all work together. That's why it's my methodology. It's something that I have been doing for years and works, not just for me, but my clients. But if you don't have content and if you are not grounding into your content, it is never going to stick. It doesn't matter. It's not about volume. It is about putting in the reps, but being able to learn from the reps you did last week and the week before and last year. So reground into your content. Number 2, don't make reactive changes to your offers, pricing, or entire business model just because you're in a funk. I say this with love because I have definitely been there where you start to think, oh my God, it's not working, or I'm in a funk, or women, I'm in my luteal phase, so I'm just going to start being reactive. Stop being reactive to your business. That is one thing that was such a bottleneck for me, is being constantly reactive. And if anything wasn't working like that when I wanted it to, I could never let it sit. Yes, we need to make decisions and we need to make decisions fast. But if you're constantly changing your content style week by week by week, if you're constantly changing your offers or adding things, or if you're constantly looking, okay, I was doing that last week, but now I'm going to introduce this because I saw another creator and coach or product-based business do it and it worked really well. No. You cannot be reactive. So go through and look at all the things that you have been reactive in your business. This is a big thing that I see when I do intensives with brand founders and service-based business, is the reactivity. I can quite literally see it when they come to me or when I have conversations, is you aren't getting these results because you're just super reactive. Be responsive in business instead. So go in order where you are reactive versus responsive. And I can guarantee that you are going to see most of the time you're just super reactive. And that is acting like a hobbyist. You're not really putting on that CEO hat and actually acting like a business owner that wants to create a business that's sustainable and profitable. And number 3, pick 3 needle moving / profit building tasks for the week. The ones that actually shift the needle, and let the rest go. Stop trying to do a million things a week, right? I've already hinted one of the top priority is content. But don't try to do a million things like smash out, okay, I'm going to get on every single channel and I'm going to burn myself out. No, what is needle moving for your business as a whole, your business ecosystem, but what is going to generate profit? Doesn't mean that you're going to focus on YouTube and then as soon as you post that, then you're waiting for the profit to come in. No. But what is going to build into that is so important. It is a long-term game when it comes to business. People who chase instant wins and quick instant gratification are the ones that lose at business, are the reason why their business fails, because you're just in it for the quick wins. My business has increased its profitability and sustainability every single year. It has never dipped. Never ever dipped. Have there been, of course, lower quarters and higher quarters? Of course there have. But overall, when you look at my business, it has increased its sustainability and it has increased its profit margins because I play the long-term game. There have been many mistakes I've made. There have been many failures. Don't worry about that. But again, failure equals feedback. I make decisions quick. But when you learn to be responsive and instead look at this is my life's work, entrepreneurship is spiritual. It is, for me, it's this spiritual awakening to how I'm experiencing life, but it's also something where I realize it is a long-term game. Can you have in the sense of, okay, you don't need to think, oh, if I want to, hit, 10,000 followers, then yeah, it's going to take me, 5 years. No, but it's not about chasing quick wins to try and get there. It's like, this could take you 2 years or it could take you 2 months. What are the things you are grounded in? What are the things that are needle moving? Like actually move the needle, not just busy work. So you can say, oh, I spent 8 hours on my business today and all you did was have a conversation with ChatGPT and write a few notes, right? What is that doing? How is that building profit? So those are 3 things to create structure when it comes to being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, and being able to move through those times that feel uncertain. Now, let's go to life. So I want you to stick to your anchors. This is something that I've really been working on this year and coming back to, whether it's your morning walk, your journal, your bedtime routine, whatever brings you back to yourself. I need you to anchor into that daily and preferably a few times a day. And that can be different things, but with intention. I have this conversation with my clients all the time, being intentional about how you are anchoring into your life. And anchor brings you back to the present moment. It brings you back inside yourself. And this is how we build self-trust. I've said it many times before and I'll say it again. When you trust yourself, you are able to back yourself. And if you cannot back yourself, what do you really have in life? Nothing. And so you need to be able to stick to your anchors, find what they are, find what really works for you, and they will change. But they are things that are going to allow you just to take a breath and be present and connect to what's actually happening in your body. So make it a habit, but make it an intentional habit to find those anchors. Number 2. Check your calendar. Google Calendar is my best friend. It's my best friend. I've been using it, maybe 8 years now, 9 years consistently. If it's not in my Google Calendar, it's not happening. Do you need space or do you need structure? And honestly, it's probably both. You probably need space in some times of the week and you need structure in others. I always get asked by people and clients of mine, especially how is your week structured? What do you do? Set up your week for success. Look at your calendar. Don't just guess or don't just write on a notepad. Taking from someone that writes all her thoughts on a notepad. Know what works for you. I prefer to have the heavy admin and my client calls, a majority of my client work at the start of my week. And then I taper off. Today's Thursday. This is a more relaxed day where I do some filming, where I do editing, where it's not heavy on the admin. There's no immediate to-dos. It's the fun things. It's the creative things for me. Fridays for me, they can be something that I either take off the entire day and I spend it with my partner, or there is also space there to have structure for business or life admin. So check your calendar, prioritize checking your calendar, and make it a habit, whether you use Google Calendar, whether you use the iPhone, the Apple Calendar, whatever, like use a proper calendar. I'm not talking a Notion board. I know Notion also has a calendar feature in there, but actually get a proper calendar and use it, and time block and understand where your energy is high in the week, where your energy dips. I have business owners that do calls on Fridays. I could never. I could never. My energy does not extend to be a coach, a mentor, a strategist for my clients on a Friday. That's why I have Tuesday and Wednesday. But for other business owners, that works really, really well. So it's not up to me to tell you what works the best, because it is dependent on who you are, what you are creating, but it is up to you to decide what is going to work the best for you and to stick to that. Do a 90-day sprint, a quarter sprint into exactly where is my energy? What does it look like? As a woman, are you also structuring it around your menstrual cycle? That's big. That's really big. Next one. Prioritize self-leadership rituals over self-soothing distractions. You don't need another scroll session. You need clarity. This is one of the reasons why I started reading nonfiction again this year. In the moments where I find myself just scrolling, because my nervous system is either like, what you're avoiding right now is going to change your life, or I'm feeling a little bit depleted, but that's just not productive. Right. And I do want to say it's not about being productive and switched on all the time. No. But like, what is that actually giving me if I just sit at my desk in a scroll hole for the next hour? Nothing. I need space. I need clarity. I need to clear my mind. I need to come back to myself. This is a big reason why I started reading. I go and read. I have time to myself. It helps with my creativity. And then I reset. And I see like what's come up. I now feel the spaciousness in my mind. Prioritize self-leadership rituals. How are you leading yourself throughout the day? Again, these things aren't like mind-blowing or crazy, but what they are, they're things that people miss and people want to skip because it sounds too simple. But when you stick with these, when you understand the importance of these, you will see a difference. And the last one here is being able to understand duality, power and mess, strategy and emotion, momentum and stillness. This is like overall. Understand the power of duality and how it is serving you to learn by both aspects of that duality. When you are experiencing chaos, you are also experiencing in somewhere in your life the peace and the stillness. And it is true because the law of polarity states that you need both ends of the spectrum and you are experiencing them simultaneously. I see this with business owners. When business is really popping off, most of the time their relationship or relationships aren't going so well. And it doesn't mean to expect that. Could probably do another episode on this. It doesn't mean to expect that, but it just means that we are working in duality. And so when you are neutrally grounded, when you are doing these things, creating the structure, like some of the points that I've brought into today's episode, you are able to experience that simultaneously without spiraling, without the guilt, without the shame, without having a breakdown. So you do not need to hide and retreat and take a sabbatical when life, business, career, anything feels messy. What you need to do is find structure. You need to lean in and be very honest with yourself, having honest conversation. I've been having so many honest conversations with myself this year. However you do that, whether it's voice messaging yourself, writing it down, get it out of your head. It's good to think about it, but also get it out of your head in some capacity, texting yourself. Be honest with yourself about, okay, am I living in another spiral, another chaos, and nothing's quite changed, and what should I do? It's about creating structure around the chaos to bring you the clarity for your next move. That is going to be key for you. Don't lean out. The only reason you haven't got the results that you truly want by now, or you feel like you're further away, or it's like, oh my God, no matter how much I try, I'm no closer. You're there. You're right on the next edge. You're there. But your inability to lean into that, create structure, have discernment of whatever season you're in, is the thing that is your bottleneck, is the thing that is holding you back. And so look at that. Be honest with yourself. What season of life are you in now? Where do you need to create structure? You know, I made a thread, a very, very simple thread the other day. And I said, you either do the work or you don't. It really is that simple. Are there other factors? Yes. There are always going to be life factors, but there is a power, a internal power when you realize how that simple saying is like, yeah, I either do the work or I don't. One of my clients, I won't say the exact situation for confidentiality reasons, but she is going through something really, really huge in her personal life, life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And the fact that she is creating structure in the chaos right now, like when I tell you this thing that she's going through is life-changing, it's devastating, but she's also building and scaling a business, but she's creating structure around that and she's showing up. And she's doing it because, again, you either do the work or you don't. You either lean in or you don't. And then your results will follow from that. It's actually been super inspiring to watch the way that she's leading herself and showing up for herself. And it is something, you know, I think being able to work with clients, like it's great to get the monetary results. It's great to get the following. It's great to, you know, work yourself up to be able to get the promotion in your career or whatever it may be. But I think the best thing that I see in my clients is the self-leadership, the self-trust. Like that means everything to me. That is huge. And the way that she's been leading herself and trusting herself is just, yeah, it's super inspiring, but it's because she could have leaned right out. She could have been like, this is too hard. I'm going to give up. And like, I just want to reiterate, like this thing she's going through in her personal life, it is devastatingly life-changing. It makes me emotional because I'm just so proud of her. I'm so proud of what she is doing to show up for herself. Because, you know, it gets to a point as well where it's like, I don't want to experience the same results. I don't want to keep doing this. I'm sick of it. That's how I got. It was so painful. You know, when people often ask me, like, how did you quit your job with no savings, move to Bali and start a business? You know why? Because I was over it. I was fucking sick of it. I was fucking sick of the same results. I was done. It was too painful to stay the same. Everyone's scared of the change. But to me, it's more painful doing the same thing, knowing you were meant for so much more. I hope that this episode has given you an insight into what happens when life, business, career feels chaotic and you lean out. But it is okay and it is safe to lean in and to embrace the uncertainty and to create structure around that, depending on the season of your life. This is a big focus, everything I've spoken about today, in my membership that is launching very soon, Woman Mastery HQ. It is where CEO strategy meets subconscious mastery, because you need both. You don't just need one or the other. And it is a membership that I have created that is truly my life's work. That is something that is going to help women not only double their income, but finally step into that trust for themselves and leadership of themselves. When life gets wobbly, when things feel uncertain, how do we hold ourselves and then hold the results that we are creating in life? And so if this podcast episode has resonated with you whatsoever, go into the show notes, sign up to the waitlist to join us in Woman Mastery HQ, because when I tell you everything, if you love the podcast, if you're watching here on YouTube, you love my YouTube channel, all of this is going to be 50x inside the membership. And it's, you know, something I've learned a lot over the past 6 6.5 years in business, and one thing I've learned is we don't want just trainings to consume, or we don't just want to show up to one call and then feel unsupportive. This is really everything you need to feel supported in your journey to mastering yourself. And that's why it's called Woman Mastery. Because when you learn how to master yourself, you master life. You master your income. You master what freedom is. You master your relationships, your legacy, your vision. And it's empowering. And you get to take that for every decade of your life and every season of your life. And you don't spiral. You don't repeat. You learn and you build and you work towards your long-term vision of success. Join the waitlist. The link is in the show notes below. And let me know if you're watching here on YouTube what you got out of this. What was your favorite part of this episode? And if you are listening, send me a DM. I love receiving your DMs when you've listened to the podcast. Let me know what you loved from the episode, what type of episodes you want me to record. And as always, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and I will see you in the next. Bye.